guys, welcome back to day -1. As I said the other day, these last 2 days I'm just going to be summarizing what I have done over the last 45 days, so that if you or anyone else has ever missed the vlog, which I know is very time consuming, is considering all of them put together are like over 8 hours, so that you can just watch this almost 30-minute video from today and tomorrow and understand the gist of the story at least. So without further ado, I'm going to need to get started pretty soon, which is why I'm holding this, because I need a cheat sheet, because I need to know what I need to at least know a little bit of what I talked about so I can understand. Anyway, so without further ado, in the beginning I talked about how I had been laid off from work and how, like just recently, and how I was kind of bummed out, but that day I decided to, or a few days later I decided to go to a grocery to buy a few things because I needed something, to help cheer me up. And I was going down the tea aisle because I wanted to get some tea to, obviously to drink, because I had started drinking tea recently, and I ran into this girl who was asking me to get something from the top shelf because she was kind of short, and so I did, and well, she decided to start talking to me, and eventually I found out, we introduce ourselves. I say that my name is Oliver, and for the purposes of this story I'd say that her name's Chrissy, but anyway, so we get to talking and we find out we have a couple things in common. It's kind of cool, and eventually I find Chrissy gives me her numbers in order so we can hang out the next time, which leads to the second video where I do talk about the first time that we hung out, and how I didn't want it to be anything too formal because we were just friends, but so I struggled with where to go, but I eventually decided on a tea house where we could get to know each other instead of just going to a Starbucks or something, which I guess we could have done too. But so that goes well, and then the third, which leads to the third video where I talk about the fact that after that first hangout I decided that I kind of liked her and I wanted to ask her out eventually. And I talk about the reasons why, and why I think that this is a good thing, that that fate had decided to give me something, and I wanted to take advantage of that, in the sense of I wanted to not let her slip away and see if there's anything there, because I have a very hard time making friends in real life. So I figured that even though I might lose, it might be kind of weird, I wanted to ask her out eventually, which leads to the fourth vlog where I talk about the first day that I asked her out. And it was a day like the second video where we hang out at the mall, and I get a ring, not unlike this one, which factors in a little bit later, probably tomorrow, and I talk about how by the end of the day we go past the Taco Cabana, and how I told her that I hadn't been to one in years, and that she said that next time we hang out that we'll go to lunch and it'll be her treat, and I said that no, it's okay, we can go a little bit more formal and it'll be my treat. And eventually she figures out that I'm asking her on a date, so she asks me that, am I asking her on a date, and I said yes, sorry, and so that's me asking her out, because she actually asked that, so really it really isn't. But eventually, so in the fifth vlog I talk about I found out through the next few months that Chrissy's a very religious person, that she was very involved in the Catholic faith, and how at first that really did bring us kind of together, because I was pretty well into my faith, not as good as her, but kind of still really good in my faith, so that brought us closer together, knowing that we had that in common. Which leads to the sixth vlog where I talk about our first date, and how instead of going to Taco Cabana we settled on still another taco place, but place I didn't want to mention, and how the date really went pretty well, actually, considering I was kind of nervous. But eventually, by the end of the date, I had tried to figure out if I could, if I had the nerve to kiss her at the end of the date, and I struggled with it the entire night, but eventually I didn't, and I found out by a few months later that I could have, because Chrissy would have been fine with that. And that leads to my next vlog where I talk about how I beat myself up over that, because I could have sealed the deal but I didn't, and how the next week over that I kept trying to figure out the perfect scenario to have our first kiss, and eventually it all just basically just happens in the parking lot of where we first met, and because I think it was raining, I want to say, no, that's not right. Whatever. We have our first kiss in the parking lot of that grocery store, and how I was running a really all-time high, but eventually I find out that, or she finds out that I was actually kind of lying, because we both said that this was really our first kiss with someone else, but I lied, and she found out that I'd actually gotten my first kiss in high school, and how she got mad, and that led to our first fight, which I actually use a buffer video in between. Before I talk about that, I talk about the age difference between us, how I hadn't admitted to you guys until this, how we were actually 5 years apart, how she was a little bit older than me, and how at first that wasn't really that much of a difference, but eventually it did play into a little bit of why we couldn't reconcile, and how the fact that she didn't really act much of her age did actually help us actually connect with each other, at least a little bit. And then the next video I talk about how the next video we talk about our first fight, and how Chrissy is definitely mad at me for lying to her. I mean, it's not even the fact that I had kissed someone else, it's just the fact that I'd lied to her, and how she almost breaks up with me, gets mad at me, and I try to figure out in the next vlog how to make it up to her, and eventually I recruit her best friend and her roommate, Rios, and how Rios basically helped me figure out that all I needed to do was go up to Chrissy and apologize and say something from the heart, that that I didn't want to lose her, even though we had barely known each other. I didn't want to lose her in my life, because she was someone that I could at least talk to, if anything, and how that really helped us make up and become okay again. And in the next video I talk about how how Chrissy really liked the idea of YouTube, how she liked watching people talk about their lives or do something creative on a however long video, and how that helped lead to kind of what I do today, and how why I decided to put some of these vlogs on YouTube, because of stuff that she said to me in the past. And the next video is about a story I had started writing after I graduated high school, and how Chrissy was the one that actually helped me get back on track with it, because originally I didn't want to do anything with it after a certain while, but she was the one that actually read it and decided, or told me that I should really do something with it, that I shouldn't just be okay with just writing it, that I should be trying to get it out there in the public, and which led to me preparing it as a web series in the present day, and how that's one aspect of how Chrissy's influenced my life, which leads to the 13th video, where I talk about I think I mixed this up. One of the next videos is the day of my birthday. I know it's months ahead, it goes to November finally. This starts in February, but talk about the day of my birthday, how the actual day was pretty uneventful, but by night Chrissy asked me to go out with her and her friends drinking, because she wants to celebrate my birthday, so I do, and stuff happens, and basically at the end of the night I have a drunk Chrissy. I'm kind of drunk myself, but I'm a little more sober than her, and how I could have done something, I should say, but eventually I decide for better judgment and decide not to do anything, and how I found out, kind of like the kiss a few months later, that she kind of would have been okay with it, but I still wouldn't have been, considering she was drunk. And that leads to the 14th vlog, where I talk about the day that Chrissy and I almost got caught, because it was a late night and Chrissy came to my house and she climbed up to my window, and we find out that my dad's not completely asleep. He is watching a movie and he's up, he's kind of drowsy, but he's still awake, and how that kind of scared me, because I hadn't talked about our relationship to anybody else in my family at that point, and how that intertwines a little bit with the story of Chrissy telling me about when she was in high school, and how she was in marching band just like I was, and how she was in a very big program that I looked up to, and how getting almost caught by my dad made me realize that maybe I should tell somebody about our relationship, even if it's not him or my mom or anyone in my immediate family. So that leads to my next vlog, where I talk about the next time where I actually do finally reveal to someone in my family that I have been dating someone for a while, and how I told it to my cousin and his girlfriend at the time, and how even though they never got introduced to each other, just the fact that I told someone that I was dating someone was kind of put my mind a little bit at ease, and that it wasn't that big of a secret. Still a little bit of a secret, but it wasn't that big of a secret. Which leads to the next video where I talk about the ring that I wear on my chain for most of these videos, and how it symbolizes the time Chrissy and I had together, and it symbolizes faith and hope, and a little bit of what I do, of why I am always trying to better myself in the future. The 17th video I talk about how even though Chrissy really liked YouTube and how people were documenting some of their lives sometimes, she wasn't a very big fan of social media in general, and how she didn't really have a Facebook or a Twitter or anything at that time because she didn't really like it, and how it felt kind of weird because I was like, that doesn't make sense considering you like YouTube a lot, and it just felt weird because I thought that that's where we could have at least done something like that with our relationship, make it Facebook official, but back then it didn't really, I guess it didn't really matter, and that's just something that really was weird between us. And in the 18th vlog I talk about how I found out that Chrissy is actually kind of rich, her family's really rich, and how at first it made me a little bit uneasy, but then I realized that Chrissy never really treated anyone negatively just because she had a lot of money, and how I realized that money doesn't really change at least her, and how that was kind of interesting. The 19th video I talk about how I want to say a few days before Christmas, how Chrissy told me that she was going back home for Christmas, and that was the beginning and the end, because I started to feel kind of sad because I had a lot of stuff lined up to do with her for Christmas, and that she had sprung this up like really quickly, and how I wish that she had told me like a few days sooner, and it started to make me feel a little down. And the last two vlogs I'll talk about is the 20 and 21st vlog, where I talk about what happened with me in high school, how it goes along with the story that I told to her in the second vlog, how there's this girl that I met in high school that I really liked, and that I got somewhat relatively close with, and how eventually I realized that I had a pretty unhealthy obsession with her, and that by the end of the year that I had to write a paper on someone that's influenced me in my life, and I decided to write my paper on her in high school, and how a lot of my friends and I decided that I would show her this because it would be something where I can maybe someone at least tell her that I like her, but at the end of the paper I decided to add more stuff and say that I don't know if we should be friends because I did have this obsession with her, and that how that led to her not talking to me up until the present, and how that tied in with Chrissy and me, and how I was worried that Chrissy leaving would going back to Georgia would make me feel a little scared and make me kind of obsessed, and I was worried that Chrissy and my relationship would turn into what happened in high school, and that's how I'm going to end the vlog today because I'm running short on time. Hopefully that all kind of made sense, and hopefully that summarizes some of what I did. That's the first half of what I'm going to talk about, and tomorrow I'm going to finish up the second half and talk about a little bit of tidbit that I've never revealed up until now. And so if you've been watching these vlogs from the beginning, thank you, and thank you for bearing with me today because I know I'm talking a little bit fast. And yeah, thanks for watching again, and until next time, see ya.